Excellencies, dear Raul, dear Dean Salgado, dear Captain Borelli, dear Senor Schwartz, dear Otto, dear friends and colleagues of PIANC. It is my real pleasure to have been invited to say a few words of introduction for this third session of the fully PIANC integrated Smart Rivers Conference, organized with such efficiency by the local organizing committee together with the scientific committee. And you mentioned this, Raul. We do measure how dynamic and tough you have been to attract as many as 26 countries to such an event and nearly 280 participants. So that's a real achievement. Many thanks, Raul, to have also invited at this opening session several major Argentinian players in PIANC's field, because it shows us that PIANC can be active in very different and complementary circles or networks. If I mention, for instance, the university, engineering university, of course, they are all very active within PIANC, and we know that you have long-standing international cooperations, for instance, with TU Delft. We will soon examine at our next Executive Commission terms of reference for a permanent core network of PIANC members teaching in several universities, either coastal, port, or inland waterways design engineering. And we know that many graduated students, young professionals, apply for some of our prizes, and for instance, the Papa Willems Award. Our vice president in charge of the jury had in 2014 as much as 30 applicants. So it shows real interest into those fields. Of course, Engineering Academy, and we know that our members, many of our members are working in such academies and getting their knowledge in different parts of the world. And of course, Captain Borelli, the port of Buenos Aires, I should have mentioned that we, have many memorandum of understanding with sisters associations, of course, IAPH, the International Association for Port and Harbors, but also the International Association of Maritime Pilots, IMPA, and the International Associations for Harbor Masters, EHMA. And you know that PIANC has produced a very large number of reports concerning ports. And we all understand how crucial the port of Buenos Aires is for the whole Argentinian trade and how much ports play a role in them as main nodes of the international freight trade as a whole. So for those who are interested in PIANC, which means in waterborne navigation and in infrastructure industry, I'd like to mention that we are living and experiencing very important changes. As you know, due to the large increase of the size of the ships, container ships, gas carriers, the previous inter-ocean or inter-seas canals represented real bottlenecks to the maritime navigation and had to be enlarged. This has been done in a tremendously short period of time, less than a year, in Egypt for the Suez Canal under the impulse of the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, and with the combined work of 6 major international dredging companies, including 3 of the PIANC Platinum members. So during our last council yesterday, we were pleased to have a presentation by René Coleman, Secretary of IADC, who described those works, and we were really very impressed in this. And of course, the nearly achieved Panama Canal expansion project, who will be presented, as you mentioned, Raul, by the Vice President Esteban Sáenz in a keynote speech, and we are all very interested because we know how much the maritime logistic flows are changing in many neighboring countries, be them on the Pacific coast or on the Atlantic coast. We know also that many ship owners and ports are working hard on those topics. PIANC members know probably well that Panama will host our next Congress in 2018. And if you remember that our previous Congress was in San Francisco last year, that our next COPEDEC conference will be in Rio in 2016, you can understand how much PIANC looks after Americas and Latin America with, I would say, Jimena's eyes. Due to the growing awareness about environmental effects, we worked out a complete philosophy of working with nature and also rising awareness on climate change issues with specific consequences in coastal areas. So PIANC has set up nearly a decade ago a permanent task force on this topic. And this year, with the COP21, where the leader organizer were from Chile and France, with the so-called Lima-Paris Action Agenda, we as PIANC are setting up a coalition of partners together with IPH, IMPA, IHMR, and UDA, and of supporters, gas terminals, bulk terminal operators, and this will be released officially tomorrow during the Smart Rivers Conference to the press. So our main job will be to enhance a focal point, concentrating information on climate change issues useful for waterborne infrastructure, navigation conceivers, managers, deciders, and with 4 main pillars: sustainability, resilience, integrated management, and developing the working with nature philosophy. At this stage, it seems useful for those less familiar perhaps with PIANC activities to select some of our main goals and recent achievements in those fields. I'll just be very short. Fundamental engineering works. We produced reports on harbor approach channels, criteria for the selection of breakwaters, for instance, to come soon, and design guidelines for inland waterways as a whole. This is a very important milestone for PIANC production. Sustainable management, sustainability reporting, guide for port authorities, co-produced with IPH, and resilience, of course, navigation structure resilience to overloading, for instance. And with the working with nature philosophy, we are trying to gather projects and to select the best one to be selected in that field. So what are we looking in the near future for PIANC? During our last General Assembly in Porto, I have stressed the 4 pillars of PIANC in the near future. First of all, keeping a large geographical spread as an international organization. And it means for us that we have to increase the country members of PIANC, and gaining expansion in Latin America is very important for us, as it is also in Asia. And we know that we have a very good combination of actions between Argentinian section, Spanish section, US section, working together in this area, and this is for us very important to gain new members, and I'm sure that some of you attending these Smart Rivers will join us. Of course, our second pillar is to maintain our very high level standard of technical production and to be able to produce at least 5 or 10 main reports each year, and we are keeping the pace on this. Then enabling decision makers to take into account the advice we can deliver through our expertise, common expertise, and through position papers. And of course, in the San Francisco resolution, it was the idea to gather information on the needs for new infrastructure. And this is also something very important we have to keep on board. And of course, and you have understood very well, we strengthened our networking activities with sisters organizations, since we cannot do this on our own, and this is also something very important I'd like to stress. Now, addressing to Otto Schwetz, one of the fathers of the Smart Rivers initiative, I'd like to mention that Raoul mentioned it completely, the initiative for large navigable river basins. It's something which we have to keep on, and I think to have it on board Smart Rivers is also very good. And just to conclude, I would like to recall to Raoul some words of a famous French writer, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, which of course was one of the pioneering aviators in the 1930s, opening postal routes towards South America and Patagonia. His first novel, Vol de Nuit, stresses this experience. And about the sea, he gives us the following advice, especially suitable, I think, for PIANC members as a whole. Si quieres construir un barco, no empieces por buscar madera, cortar tablas o distribuir el trabajo. Evoca primero en los hombres y mujeres el angelo del mar libre e anco. So I think it's also our task in the navigation, so I wish you all a very fruitful conference. Thank you for your attention.